Yep, here's my goal: to create a 100-panel webcomic from scratch to finished in 6 months, and to share progress videos at least once a week. However, that was kind of a big fail, because I missed my usual posting day, which was Saturday, which was 2 days ago at the time this is being recorded. And that's a pain. It's just super irritating when you had such a good run going for 11 weeks and then you drop the ball on the 12th week, but oh well, the more important thing is that we don't give up, right? That I don't give up and I just keep going and not let it bother me too much. And you might be wondering, like, what is going on here? This is not a comic. This looks like a meme. Kind of. It came about because when I started to look at the upcoming panels, I was thinking that I'm not entirely sure how to draw some of their heads from these angles. And if I'm not sure, that's going to really slow down my progress. And I thought it might be worth spending just one drawing session figuring out what their heads will look like in the 8 most common angles. Oh, hey, let's turn on some music. The 8 most common angles that are used in storytelling art. I got these angles off of a YouTube video by, who was it? Was it Alex Wu? I think. It was basically like a sort of a overview video for a schoolism course that I would definitely take if I had the money, but of course I don't have the money. So, he went through and he drew like the 8 most common angles in storyboards. And for me, in my opinion, I think that storyboards and comic books are like, you know, cousins or something of the same family. Like anything that works for storyboarding, I believe can work for a comic. But I don't necessarily think everything for a comic can work for a storyboard. But they're both, you know, sequential images. They're both visual storytelling. So I took the 8 angles that he mentioned in that video, and I made just a quick little reference sheet using Audrey Hepburn because I wanted to have the same faces from different angles so that I could see kind of how her features changed. Of course, I couldn't find her at the exact same age for all 8. I mean, now that I think about it, I probably could have turned on a movie and just like waited and, you know, screen capped anytime the actor was in one of these angles that I needed, and that would have been great. But who has time for that? I don't have time for that. So, yeah, I just grabbed some images of Audrey Hepburn and went about trying to draw Clarice in these same angles. As you can see, having troubles. Number one, her nose is not the typical nose that I draw. So I had to basically just get her front view and kind of figure out just like how long are her features. Like when she turns to the side, you know, where are these features going to be placed? And I think it's because not only is her nose fairly long, but it's also the tip is pointed down. And right there it looks like kind of an evil Saruman nose. But I have to kind of figure out like what her nose does in these situations, because I've never had this downturned nose before. So that's worth, I think, you know, practicing at these different angles. And just to make sure that I don't kind of half-bake this little practice here. Wow, that eye makes her look like she's under the influence. I'm kind of cleaning it up with the lines because I want to be sure that I don't rely on just 3D forms to show how their head is turning if I'm not allowed to use those lines in the final comic, you know what I mean? So like all these guidelines, and like a lot of times I'll draw the entire bottom of her nose, and if that's not going to show up in the comic, then I probably shouldn't be using it here and relying on it to show the angle of her head if I can't actually show that in the comic, you know? So, just doing that and kind of getting more used to drawing their faces. That was the deal here. That's what was going on. As for the actual comic, where does that stand? I have the next maybe 20 panels in script form. Like I know the story beats and what I want to happen. And I have the next 2 panels like really roughly thumbed out, so those should happen very soon. But after those 20 panels, because of all the previously mentioned problems of characters fitting the story. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen yet. That's okay. That means there's lots of options available to me. This angle, I'm just going to tell you right now, is the most difficult angle for me. Not because I don't understand what the features are doing, but because I'm not entirely sure how to express it with very simple lines. Because I think it's kind of weird if I go from a very simple nose from the 3/4 view that you can see over in the reference picture on the right there in blue. I mean, her nose is basically just one little line. And then when she was looking up, it's like, do I draw her nostrils? Do I draw like the little piece of nose in between? You know, it's difficult to figure out how many lines you can draw and still feel like it's the same style as when she's in, you know, these kind of views where, you know, again, her nose is very simple there. But when it's the looking up angle, man, it's tough. This angle's a little bit okay, but again, I couldn't figure out, do I do the nostril? Do I not do the nostril? I looked up a few cartoons to kind of get an idea of how they do it, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and you know, just cartoons that had kind of a similar style to mine, and figure out, you know, what are they doing when they raise the characters' heads and such. It wasn't all that helpful because I tend to draw the bottom of the nose, like right there, and in Avatar: The Last Airbender and others, they do more of just like a line for the bridge of the nose and a nostril. So they already, you know, set up that noses have nostrils, like in whatever view they are. And for me, it's just like, oh gosh, what part of the nose do I express when, you know, we're looking up at her from like a worm's eye view? So that was quite difficult, and I drew it over and over and over, and trying to figure out like how much of the nose dips down, or do I show, you know, the tip or the nostrils like this, and it for some reason I would lose the character of her nose if I only drew the nostrils, and I didn't feel like it looked like her anymore because her nose is pretty much her defining feature. So this might have been where I was like, yeah, how does anime do it? And couldn't find much there, so I'm like, okay, Airbender, how do you do it? How do you do these angles? And I think I ended up doing just nostrils after all, and, you know, just having to hope that people can tell it's her because of everything else, and it's not completely dependent on just, you know, her nose. After I did Clarice, I moved on to Kess. And first just putting all the circles in so that they're the same size, and I don't make one like super tiny and one super big, you know. So, doing her eyes first, and for her, I think her nose maybe got a little bit exaggerated right there, but I kind of liked it after a while, so I don't know if that's going to be a feature that stays that big or not. But drawing them one after the other, I realized just how different their faces are, especially since she has not only an upturned nose, but a shorter nose than Clarice does, and her pupils are much, much smaller than Clarice's, and her eyebrows are different, and just her head structure in general has different proportions. She doesn't have quite as long of a chin. They do both have a lot of hair covering their right eye, which looks like it's on the left, which made it kind of lame for the rear 3/4 view, because it's like, well, it's just hair, you can't see anything anyway. But again, her up angle was a little bit easier because her nose is upturned anyway, and so it's not that different from just her normal self. I did have some trouble with that hair that flips in the back. And sometimes it was really flippy and sometimes not so flippy, and I wasn't sure, is it just like one single spike of hair, or is it like fanned out? So I had to kind of deal with those problems that I didn't even think about just by going through these 8 angles. And if you want to do these same 8 angles with your characters, I have the blank template available in the video description. So you can just grab one for yourself, and these took me maybe an hour to do all 8 and then ink all 8. So I'll give you a little bit of a time reference there. But again, it kind of depends on how much you struggle with a particular angle. Like Clarice took way longer than Kes did just because her nose was giving me so many problems in the looking up angle. I didn't get to Socorro yet, so I guess I'll just save her for the next video because I didn't want to delay this video anymore because I felt like, oh man, I don't want to, you know, get delayed or anything. And there will still be another video this Saturday, for those of you who are wondering. Unless, you know, of course, life throws me another curveball. But I have every intention to get back on board and have actual panels by Saturday, even though that's what I said last Saturday. Oops. But, you know, try again, right? If at first you don't succeed, try again. But this time I was starting to get a little bit sloppier with my line work. Because after I'd figured out the forms, then I figured, well, the lines don't have to be perfect. I just want to make sure that I can use lines that I would actually use in the comic and not be struggling with, well, like, how do I express that? Yeah, our features got a little small on that one. Had to adjust. Even there, it looks a little small. I fix it again. I kind of struggle with her looking too young at times, because she does already have like the youthful upturned nose and you know, the short hair, which I think was kind of a youthful look. But anyway, here they are side by side, and again, if you want to do this yourself with your own character, I highly recommend it. Like I said, I found out quite a few things that I needed to decide when I did all 8 angles, so you can go ahead and pick up an empty template in the link below.